Knock at the Cabin, the newest film written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, which is apparently adapted from a novel that I know nothing about. I'll have to look into that. So, to add context to this review and a preface, I do like M. Night Shyamalan as a writer and director. Most times, the only thing I don't like about his writing style is his dialogue. I think a lot of times his dialogue feels very clunky. I don't think he thinks about the actors or actresses speaking the lines as he writes them down, but for the most part, I think he is a very successful writer and director. I think he's a really good one at those. And I would have to say my all-time favorite M. Night Shyamalan film would be Split. Mainly just because that was a psychological thriller, not a horror at all. It didn't really have a twist except the Bruce Willis cameo at the very end, but otherwise Split was full on through and through its own standalone film that ended up interconnecting. Plus, James McAvoy's performance, he killed it. Running 24 multiple personalities in one film story with just one actor, he killed it. He's one of my all-time favorite actors because of Split. And if it weren't for M. Night Shyamalan, that film would never have showcased that talent, especially even from Anya Taylor-Joy, who was really good in that just because of her backstory. But this isn't a review about Split. So I just want to say, there are many great films from M. Night Shyamalan. There are some very terrible films. The Happening, really good. The Sixth Sense, Split. Now, Knock at the Cabin, the number one featured name in this, Dave Bautista, and then also Rupert Grint, if you're unfamiliar with him, he played Ron Weasley in Harry Potter. Except nowadays, I don't honestly say Dave Bautista is more well known than even Ron Weasley. So Knock at the Cabin is essentially a story about a family of three, a husband, and an adopted daughter. They're vacationing in a cabin. They're just trying to get away from life for a little bit. And then they immediately stumble on Dave Bautista's character, Leonard, who ends up introducing his three other friends, and they have to get into the cabin and force the gay couple with the kid to make a decision of sacrificing one of them, or else the end of the world is going to happen. Now, I hate films or stories that are about the post-apocalyptic or even anything pertaining to the apocalypse now because of The Walking Dead, because The Walking Dead is so shit and very non-canon to the source material. But Knock at the Cabin is actually a very, very well done apocalyptic thriller. I really enjoyed the writing in this film. I definitely enjoyed the dialogue, especially since it's written by M. Night Shyamalan. So I do give him props for actually getting better in some things that he was really bad in. The direction in this film is actually very phenomenal. It's very focused. This is a tight little film, and it's very focused, and that's a good positive thing I can say about this film. The acting overall from everybody is very well done. The story is very well done up to the third act. The last 15 to 20 minutes end up becoming extremely derivative, extremely predictable, extremely cliche. But the bright side is by the end of this film, this is another film by M. Night Shyamalan. He doesn't really depend on a giant twist by the end of it. And I did appreciate that. This film is basically, the twist is basically you either kill somebody and the world doesn't end, or you don't and the world ends. That's basically a twist, and you know about it through the entire film. And I did appreciate that aspect about this film and its story. There are many memorable deaths in this film because they didn't really show much of any of them. And I appreciate that. They showed the outskirts of the death scenes, but they didn't show the death scenes as a whole, and I really appreciated that cinematic treat for any kind of murder or killing. Now, to get into the third act, I must say I didn't like it at all. There was absolutely nothing I liked or even appreciated about the third act. There's even a driving scene that looks super fucking unrealistic and fake. And even before that, I don't know if it was the novel's story or the film writer's story, but everything in the third act was just super predictable and so overdone. Everything in it. And honestly, that's a shame, because the first two acts of Knock at the Cabin I thought were very suspenseful, very intriguing, interesting, entertaining. It kept you on the edge of your seat because of the choice throughout the film. Are they going to do it? Are they not going to do it? And then they also added in the element of death throughout the time wasting. And I really appreciated all of that. I just can't stand how it ended. It went from great storytelling to this abominable cliche piece of shit. And this isn't a terrible film. I encourage at least Shyamalan enthusiasts such as myself to experience this film, whether it's in theaters or at home. Experience it at least once, get your own opinion of it, and then be done with it. Personally, I fully enjoyed this film if they basically just cut out the entire third act. The third act was just a super dud and a bomb. It was terrible. It sucked. And that really is a shame to say about this film, because I really liked what they did with the LGBTQ part of this film, where the husband and husband are a gay married couple, and their story being gay makes total fucking sense to the story. They have history and basically PTSD of being gay bashed their entire lives, to the point where they literally have to hide their marriage and identities just to do things like go to hospitals to get stitched up or adopt a kid. And they even add in history of getting assaulted because of their gayness. And that's one aspect I did really love about this film for Knock at the Cabin. It's not that they just put in gayness into this just because. No, the gay couple actually make pivotal sense to the main story. And I really love that, because it also added in an element for the main timeline story in this film. And honestly, one of the number one things I loved about this film was the LGBTQ portion of this film's story. Probably my number two favorite thing, or at the very least a comparable number one, is the acting, because everybody does their goddamn great, excellent job in Knock at the Cabin with performances. Everybody is really standout. They even play characters that are against their stereotypes. Dave Bautista, who, honestly, he's a really good actor. He really is. I do like Dave Bautista as an actor. I don't think he's given very many written roles that are well done for him to play, but he's always commendable in his roles. And in this, he plays basically a buff soccer coach that's just looking out for his kids. He's shy. He knows how to speak to people, though. He's a lot like me. Very introverted, very shy, but when needs to happen, I know how to have a conversation with everybody. And that's what Leonard's character is like in Knock at the Cabin. He doesn't want to be there, but he knows he has to be. And he always has this ever-lingering feeling in him. He has to have this done. And then all of the other actors and actresses involved in his group, they all do commendable performances as well, as do the gay couple. And even the little child does a really good job. Most kid actors suck, just because they don't really know what they're doing yet. But in this film, when she actually is portrayed very fucking well. And I do commend that little actress above all because of the initial statement I just made about child actors. And again, that's also a nod to M. Night Shyamalan's direction. He knows how to direct people and films. Honestly, he could make a crappy film and it'll still be very focused and a very well put together film. The only gripe I've ever had with M. Night Shyamalan, though, not just the clunky dialogue, it was also his pacing was always super slow. It wasn't bad or anything, it was just always super slow and dull. In Knock at the Cabin, he actually, I don't know how to explain it, but he took that element away from his direction style. Knock at the Cabin does not one time feel dull or slowed out. This film is about an hour and 32 minutes, and it works through the entire way. Now, like I said, the third act is pretty terrible, but it's still consistently paced to the rest of the film. And I do commend M. Night Shyamalan's writing and direction for this film at the very least. I commend the acting. I commend most of the story. The editing is actually really well done too. I really appreciate the filmmakers doing a lot of one-shot takes for their camera work when they could have cheapened out and just done a bunch of quick shots, which everybody that knows me knows I absolutely hate those ever since Taken 3's restaurant intro. Oh my god. But anyway, overall for me, Knock at the Cabin is very entertaining up until the very third act. I would say at least watch it once for Shyamalan enthusiasts, because this is honestly a really good film from him. It's not perfect, and it's by far not one of his greatest of all time. And that's a really high bar. But this is way better than his average, and it's just solidly made and pretty damn good of a film. So Knock at the Cabin for me is a 7 out of 10. Thank you. If you like this video, please feel free to join my membership plan on here. It will greatly help me in the future. Thank you.